Will artificial intelligence and robotics impact your Social Security payment? Absolutely, and we're going to examine that today. Currently, there's already an estimate from Social Security trustees projecting that within 81 months, every single cheque will be reduced by 23%. So, if you're receiving $1,000 right now, you're going to lose $230. If you're receiving $2,000, you're going to lose $460. That's not my personal assessment, that comes directly from the Social Security Trustees report. The individuals responsible for calculating trust fund balances, annual FICA tax inflows, and benefit outflows. So essentially, what we're addressing here involves a trust fund that's becoming depleted. Nobody can refute that.
However, Social Security will persist for centuries ahead unless we privatise it, transfer control to Wall Street, and nobody knows what they might do with it. But as long as we maintain the current structure, it will endure for centuries. The challenge emerges once the trust fund empties that supplementary money currently bridging the gaps will vanish. Then the only incoming funds will be what current workers contribute through FICA taxes. So your cheque, if you, your parents, your grandparents, or your neighbours are receiving Social Security this year, approximately 91% of that cheque originates from people working today. The guy down the street currently employed, the woman down the street working at the restaurant, the barber shop, wherever they're currently working. About 91% of your cheque comes from those individuals. The remaining 9% derives from the trust fund, that accumulated savings. What's going to occur is that, again, this reflects last year's data. So it's about 9% last year. This year's new calculations haven't emerged yet, probably next month or so, but 12% of your cheque came from the trust fund last year, and then next year about 14%, then approximately 15%, and then in 81 additional months. We're talking 2033 at that point, based on current projections. About 23% of your Social Security cheque will originate from the trust fund. And then guess what happens? The trust fund becomes empty, and there's no additional money to fill that 23% gap. The issue is, okay, so we need to address that. Number one, we need to address that. But we're going to listen to Bernie Sanders discussing artificial intelligence and the labour force and robotics and all the rest of it, because here's the issue. If 91% of your money comes from people currently working, and those people are gradually and surely being replaced by AI and robotics, then where's that 91% going to come from? Robots and AI don't pay into the system. People earning over $184,500 don't pay into Social Security. So Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Bezos and all those individuals, they don't contribute to FICA into Social Security maybe for a couple of seconds, January 1st, but after that they don't pay into Social Security, like we do 365 days of the year, because there's a cap, $184,500. Anything exceeding that, people stop paying into Social Security. They pay into Medicare. There's no limit on Medicare, but that's, wages. These people, they play around. They don't actually receive wages. So they probably don't pay Social Security or Medicare or any of it. So let's check out Bernie Sanders and see what he says, what we're talking about. Transformational, this is definitely a transformational time in American history. And this is also a live Q&A. So once we finish with this little section, I will answer any or all questions. Got some questions on retirement, disability benefits, some survivor benefits, spouse benefits. So I will answer as many as I possibly can within the next hour. The United States, not only American workers, but the entire planet, very few people disagree that AI and robotics are the most consequential and transformational technologies in the history of humanity. So this is not the Industrial Revolution. This is something that is going to go a lot faster, with a lot more impact, and it's going to touch the lives of every man, woman, and child in our country in many, many areas. It's going to impact us on mental health. It's going to impact us in terms of privacy. It's kind of a historical note. That's how humans, particularly in the West, got our rights. Is U1 theory is after the plague, the Black Death, bubonic plague, and everything. So many before that, then peasants were peasants, and the lords and all those kings, they didn't care. They didn't give a crap because there was plenty of us. And then the plague hit and they wiped us out. And then the bosses had to be nice to us. And that's how we got human rights, is because there wasn't very many of us. So we demanded, say, hey, if you want us to work on your estate, then you're going to have to be nice to me. And they were having a hard time finding labour, so they had to be nice to us. And that's how the corn, the rights and all that started, John Locke and all that kind of stuff. So that was a transformational time, but now with robots and AI, I think they're going to have to beg. They don't have to be nice to us. They don't need us anymore. Soylent Green, the made of people anyway, to impact us in terms of foreign policy and war. And there are scientists out there who worry very much that if AI becomes smarter than humans, becomes independent of human control, the consequences could be catastrophic. But today we're going to focus on economics, which is an issue we don't talk enough about. And what the experts are telling us is that AI and robotics is going to have a huge impact on every worker in America. A month ago or so, I was in San Francisco. I was in a Waymo. You all know what a Waymo is? It's a driverless vehicle. Works pretty good. Driverless vehicles all over San Francisco. Waymo is expanding all over the country, as are other driverless companies, driverless automobile companies. Right now, as we speak in Texas, there are 18-wheelers going down the road in Texas. And what experts tell us, if there is not a counter-reaction, it is very likely that millions and millions of truck drivers, bus drivers, taxicab drivers will lose their jobs within the next decade. My father drove an 18-wheeler all his life. So Teamster all his life driving a truck. And that's how our family was supported by truck driving. So that's going to be tragic, but it is not just in transportation. A few weeks ago, some of you may have noticed that Jeff Bezos, the fourth richest man on earth, announced that he is seeking a fund of $100 billion to purchase and automate factories in the United States of America and around the world. Not content with replacing 600,000 workers at Amazon, which he owns, with robots. He wants to do that with factories all over our country. What does that mean? What it means is that in 10 years, the idea of a manufacturing job will no longer exist. The idea of a warehouse worker will no longer exist. But it's not just blue-collar workers, not just truck drivers and cab drivers, not just factory workers. We're looking at the impact that AI will have on white-collar workers as well. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, is now converting Tesla into a robot company, with a goal of building 1 million robots a year. Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO of Microsoft AI, recently said that most white-collar work will be fully automated by an AI within the next 12 to 18 months. Who are these white-collar workers? These are the people who were told to go to college and get an education so that they could get good jobs. They are lawyers, accountants, administrators, coders, engineers, teachers, and even healthcare professionals. So we're looking at sweeping changes among blue-collar workers, sweeping changes among white-collar workers. And the reality is that the AI oligarchs, and let's be clear who is pushing, you'll know who's pushing this technologies, the richest people on earth. Mr. Musk, Mr. Zuckerberg, Mr. Bezos, Mr. Ellison, and others. And what they want to do is replace human workers. Why? If I have a robot and it costs me $30,000, $20,000 for robot, and that robot works 24 hours a day, doesn't get a salary, doesn't get a vacation, doesn't get sick. Man, what a good investment. I've cut my quote-unquote labor cost probably by 90%. What do I need human beings? So the issue that we're dealing with today is some of us are old-fashioned and we believe in human beings, and the American people do as well. According to a recent poll, 79% of voters are concerned that the government does not have a plan to protect workers from AI job losses. 56% are concerned about losing their jobs or having somebody in their family lose their jobs in the next year. The next year, further, the overwhelming majority of Americans do not trust the motives of AI oligarchs, and in my view, for very good reasons. Among other things, and I know my Labour friends all know this, we have heard this story before. We've heard the ruling class come forward and say, "Hey, unfettered free trade. Sean, we heard that one. What a great thing it's going to be for the American workers. Think about that Chinese market. All the jobs can be created in America. You're going to sell to China. Didn't quite work out that way. They lied. And in fact, thousands and thousands of factories were shut down in America. These companies moved abroad for cheap labor back in the day, paying people in China 2,530 cents an hour. Okay? And now the AI guys, oh, don't worry about this revolution. Going to be good for you. Hey, we got your back. The American people don't believe that, and for very good reason.
So the issue we're here to discuss with some of the outstanding Labour leaders in America is what is happening and where do we go from here. What I have done is called for a moratorium on data centres, which are the infrastructure that AI functions on. And the reason I have done that is to slow the process down. How the hell do you go forward and throw millions of people out on the street without planning what's going to happen? Where do we want to go as a nation? Does AI and robotics have some positive things? Yeah. How do we use it to improve human life and not just make Mr. Musk and his billionaire friends even richer? So that's the theme of today. And I'm really delighted that we have some outstanding Labour leaders here right now. Okay, so yeah, I'm sure he's going to get attacked for being, oops, a light, that he just, wants to stop technology. No, he just wants to make it more human to serve people.
That's what technology and all that was supposed to do, is make our lives easier, not make them more difficult. By taking our job, if they want to take our jobs, more power to them, but then we need to talk about maybe universal basic income, right? And that way, at least we can afford a house over our head and food and some type of health care. I'm going to show a little bit more of his, but I've got a bunch of questions I want to go ahead and get answered.
Married 62, married 26. Year divorced, not married, have pension, full-time job and a 401k. Should I take Social Security now and only work part-time? It's really 100% up to you. I did a video yesterday, day 4 yesterday, talking about the kind of all the things you should ask yourself when you want to consider starting your Social Security benefits. If your earnings are under, because you said you're working part-time, so if you're working part-time, if you're making under $24,480, then you can go ahead and collect your Social Security benefits. There's nothing withhold, not the $1 for $2 over. If you file at 62, then your benefits are going to be reduced by 30%. Because you're going to be taking it early. They'll be reduced for the rest of your life. There are ways, I'll put that link, the link that I put into my video yesterday. Actually, I've got a few guides. I'll go ahead and put all of those links in the YouTube description.
And one of those will be the questions you need to ask yourself about early retirement, on whether you should go ahead and pull the trigger. And then there are, I call them escape hatches, that if you change your mind, more power to you. You can change your mind. So I'll make sure I'll after the end of this video, I'll put them in the L. I'll put them in the description. It'll be one on divorce benefits, spouse benefits, Medicare, Medicaid. I'll put one on there on filing benefits early. I'll put a bunch of them in there so you could definitely check them out. They're all 100% free. Okay, here we go. I have a question about an overpaid payover payment of $53,000. I paid it down $12,000 during the illness of 4-month work break. An expedited reinstatement was done, reset it back to $53K. What do I do? Okay, so this is a disability type thing. So $53,000 overpayment, that's almost, through my experience of doing this about 1 million times, that's almost always disability. So you will receive disability benefits, SSDI, and eventually usually work-related on these. About 90% of the time it's work-related, that you were receiving disability benefits, but you were working, and Social Security took about 1 year, 2 years, to finally catch that you were working, and then said, you shouldn't be receiving benefits because you're working. You can work and collect Social Security benefits, but it's called, there's trial work periods and SGAA, substantial gainful activity. It's kind of difficult. A lot of people don't navigate it correctly. That's why I've got a guide on that one. But, and so you were terminated because of work, and then within 5 years, you filed an expedited reinstatement that says, yes, my benefits were terminated because of work, but within 5 years, I have the same disability. I'm no longer able to work because of that disability. So number one thing I would do is you've already paid it down, and I'm sure you've already gone through the whole 561 and 632, those forms, and requested a reconsideration to confirm that the calculations are correct. These particularly nowadays, because Social Security doesn't have any staff, because politicians have decided to, kind of gut the agency as much as they can, then calculations like this, which take a manual human being to calculate, they often get them wrong. So any time you have an overpayment like that, I would definitely file a 561, a SSA 561. That's a request for reconsideration, and say, hey, number one, before we talk about the overpayment, I want to make sure the numbers are correct. I don't want to, negotiate a $53,000 overpayment when it turns out to be $35,000 or $5,000. So that's the number one thing I would do, is have another set of eyes take a look at it. And then once you get that decision back, then you can go ahead and start figuring it out and see what you can do to maybe waive it. In order to waive it, you need 2 things have to be met. It's not your fault, but they're going to say, it's again given my experience. I don't know your particular situation, but I've done this a few times. They're going to say, yeah, you were working though, so you knew when you filed for disability benefit, you were allowed to work, but you had limitations and you went over those limitations. Unless there's some dispute of, oh yeah, those are not my earnings. That was somebody else that, worked under my Social Security number. If that's an issue, then that should be waived. You just take off those earnings,